Every astronaut has been in awe of how beautiful Earth is from space. And it's at ground level that the beauty comes into greater focus. Some spaces are particularly unique. Hamilton, Ontario, is home to a very special open space. This area is made up of several segments, including lands around Cootes Paradise that rise up towards a heritage jewel, the Niagara Escarpment. This is where plants, fish, turtles, birds, and mammals live wild, close to the heart of a city. This is the Dundas Ecopark, a stunning haven for nature as well as the physical and mental health of people who live in the Hamilton community. The lands here are a segment of the larger Cootes to Escarpment park system, linking two neighbouring cities, Hamilton and Burlington. You're about to see how special this place is and why it needs protecting forever. The gateway to the Dundas Ecopark starts here on King Street East, on what used to be the famous Veldhouse greenhouse property. The park stretches all the way up to Pleasant View and heads east towards Highway 6. McMaster University is the cornerstone boundary to the south, and the Niagara Escarpment, a UN-designated biosphere, is the boundary to the north. 3,325 acres stretch out here in total, dominated by one of North America's most significant wetlands, right here in Cootes Paradise. The green lines show that 80% of the land in the Dundas Ecopark is already in the hands of 7 public agencies and groups: the Royal Botanical Gardens, City of Hamilton, Hamilton Conservation Authority, Conservation Halton, the Bruce Trail Conservancy, McMaster University, and the Hamilton Naturalists Club. The Dundas Ecopark will take in ecological links through Coldwater and Spring Creeks into the well-known Dundas Valley, which was protected from development in the 70s and 80s through the vision of the Hamilton Conservation Authority. Between the Cootes to Escarpment Park System and the Dundas Valley Conservation Areas, we'll be creating an enviable collection of connected green space close to a part of southern Ontario that's becoming increasingly urbanized. Local experts agree the Dundas Ecopark is exactly what Hamilton needs now from a health, ecology, community development and business perspective.
What role does nature play in health? Without nature, we'd be dead.
In the last decade, we've discovered a lot more about these lands. We undertook a study starting in 2006 and running for a couple of years after that to ask a basic question: how many plants are here? We've had scientists looking at the distribution of wild plants in this landscape since the mid-1950s in a serious way. And what taking all of their information and combining it led us to in 2006-2007 was kind of a startling realization. The 10 square kilometers of property that Royal Botanical Gardens owns is the richest place in all of Canada for plant species diversity. You cannot find another area the same size with as many wild plant species growing on it as we have right here. And it's a staggering thought and an amazing coincidence of foresight that the biodiversity hotspot for Canada is in a protected botanical garden.
Starting with the big picture, I think it's quite clear to most people now that humans have had a dramatic effect on the world, that we have had negative impacts on habitats everywhere. The availability of natural habitat is diminishing dramatically, and we have very few pockets of that habitat left in many parts of the world.
We are an ecosystem, and we don't really think about that as much, although it's starting to come into consciousness. Right? We are part of this broader ecosystem. We're made of earth, and we're made of water, and we're made of sky, and we're made of plants, and we're made of animals, Like, we're made of it. So anything that happens to the Earth happens to us.
Hamilton is working hard to become the best place to raise a child, and the Dundas Ecopark will be a green space where children can be outside in nature, having fun, and learning at the same time.
The kids that we bring love it here. For them, a lot of them, it's their very first nature outing. So for them, this is Algonquin Park.
The Dundas Ecopark area was a special place for the First Nations, and later for the European settlers.
The culture called Princess Point, which is a woodland culture, which are the, so far as we can tell, and we've got fairly good evidence, were the first farmers, cultivators. One of the ways that we track, in a general sort of way, is changes in pottery style. We've got a pretty good handle on what, they're using pottery as containers. That's what defines the woodland period. They started using pottery in Ontario in about 1000 BC. And then it changes and it develops, changes a lot in terms of the form. There is one of the few whole pots that we have that dates to Princess Point.
Artists, writers, and visionaries also feel strongly about why the Ecopark is an opportunity we must see happen.
I think that experience of just being able to have that otherness of nature so close by is fundamental to my creativity as an artist, but I would say it's essential to have a kind of a balanced life.
I think that there's far less opposition philosophically to conservation and ecological projects than there was 40 years ago. So Ecopark, I think, comes at a time in history where people understand it, people get it, and will support it. I think the question is going to be, well, where do we get the money? And my answer to that is the money will come.
Well, Hamilton's an interesting city because it's for so many years, so since the 19th century, it's been it's kind of bragged that it's been the industrial center of Canada. It's been the Birmingham of Canada, or the Pittsburgh of Canada. And one of the things that got lost during that whole big reign of industry was the fact of the city's natural location at this very western tip of Lake Ontario, where the Dundas Valley is, where the Niagara Escarpment makes this U-turn around the end of the lake. A spectacular setting that was noted, right away when people of our ilk, our European ilk, first came here. This is a bit of area that's not exactly wild, but it certainly is wild enough.
Everybody's got to have a home. You and I and the birds and the animals, insects, they all have to have homes. So we need to protect homes for the nature that can't protect itself, right, from the human species. So.
But you need a bit of a creative mind, and you have to be able to look beyond your own life years, I guess, and your own lifespan, and say, this is so important for the city and for my children and grandchildren. And if we don't act now, and if I just sit back and let it happen or not happen, then I'm sort of guilty of not making the city what it can be.
So there you have it. $1 million view, but also 1 million people view. And it's a view that should be kept for another 200 years.
As humans, we sometimes get so wrapped up in our lives that we forget this planet isn't here just for us. We forget it's a home we share with nature and the systems on which our survival depends. Here's our once-in-a-lifetime chance to look at the bigger picture, to leave a different mark on our world, and to help build an ecopark right down here.